James at 16 will not be presented this evening, but will return next week at its regular time. Stay tuned now for a special 2-hour What Really Happened to the Class of 65.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
Do you really wanna take it? Come on down and sing. And make sure you don't cross the streets. A chance to meet the stars from your favorite things. Bring your friends, cosplay for days. Our style use the ink like a magic wand. Meet a great grab a seat, pose a crazy. A comic fans are not, but he can swear it starts. Do you really wanna take it? Terrificon's the best around. Do you really wanna take it? Grab your friends and come on down. From the shows you love, t-shirts, arts, the games and mugs and you. I'm cosplaying with your armor on. Go moves a bunch of stones. Do you really wanna take it? Terrificon's the place to be. Do you really wanna take it? Kids under 7 getting free. Friends and legends too. They're all here and wanna meet. Assemble for 3 days of fun. It's Terrificon and Megan Sun.
Go to Terrificon.com for ticket purchasing and to book your hotel accommodations. There are a lot of Comic-Cons out there, but there is only one terrific Comic-Con, Terrificon.
Welcome back, everybody. Time again for another Trek Watch. Franco is on assignment at San Diego, but we do have live from San Diego, Wayne, and of course, the man from Terrificon with the brand new commercial with the Peacekeeper cosplay dance. It's Mitch Halleck, everybody. Good to see you, man.
Hello.
Yeah, if I may, I want to start with a small. All right, once again, Wayne. What did I say before?
That's
Don't
Wayne.
fumble with stuff on the. No, of course you are.
Oh no,
Mitchell.
no. Sorry, I couldn't hear you guys.
Okay, but all right, and now you're good. Okay.
He was yelling at you, Wayne.
I wanted yes, because again he was using his sandblaster in the middle of the show. Okay. Real fast, because I want to clear, and I've seen other YouTubers do this as well. I am a member of SAG. I am a member of SAG in the division where we are still allowed to do what we normally do. As a podcaster, I am not a Hollywood on-camera actor. I am not, and I'm not a member of the Writers Guild either, but I absolutely respect and support the strikes as they're happening. However, we are in my podcasting capacity, I am able to still review new movies, new TV, and the like, and will continue to do so as part of Word Balloon. Everybody knows Word Balloon is mostly comic book interviews, and in fact, I'm really excited about the panels, the comic book panels that we'll be able to do at Terrificon. And I'm sure Mitch also wants to reemphasize that all the celebs are coming. They are available for autographs and photographs, but unfortunately, they can't do panels. As a consequence, unfortunately, and especially as we're talking about Star Trek, Mitch was great and was ready to give me 2 awesome panels featuring first officers like Frakes and Rebecca Romaine, and the Deep Space Nine people like Wayoon, Garrick, and Dax. And I'm looking forward to meeting them and getting pictures with them and hopefully talking for a couple seconds with them. No panels. What are you going to do? That's it. That's the announcements, and let's get to it. I had another show earlier with Ed, who's a wonderful UK essayist and critic about New Trek in particular, and is kind of frustrated in the same way that I am. We talk mostly in general, though, so we really didn't get a chance to talk about the last 2 episodes that dropped this week. I mean, it was a big surprise to learn that the crossover was being dropped on Saturday. But, I was ready to do an Uhura show, a review of episode 6. So that's if we could talk about episode 7 as well. But let's start with 6. Again, it was an Uhura episode, and here she is ready to fight off imaginary things that are in her head, but it turns out they're not imaginary. It was okay, that episode. I still dislike the way they portray James Kirk, and I love that all of them called him James. And I'm like, he's Jim. I mean, if he really wants to be the real character, it's like I remember that wonderful moment in Generations when they're getting ready to fight Malcolm McDowell, and it's like, "Good luck, Captain," and he's like, "Call me Jim," and it's like, yeah, that's what Jim Kirk is. Jim Kirk, he's your buddy. He wouldn't like, oh, I need to be called James or anything. I mean, it's fine, but it's whatever. We'll get into more, but I thought it was okay, but also I was a bit disappointed that our friend Hemmer was really a silent participant in the, other than the who were watching the videos of him showing her how to recalibrate the communications array or whatever. So yeah, I was a little disappointed that, hey, don't worry, Bruce Horrick's coming back, and it's like, kind of, I guess. But thoughts on episode 6, boys?
Mitch?
Go ahead, Wayne.
Actually, I liked it. I thought it was an okay episode. It's again, we're dealing with an alternative universe. Just accept the fact that it's not going to be the same.
That is, well, I guess that's part of my complaint about Jim Kirk. Mm-hmm. But as far as just in general,
yeah.
And I'll get into minutia and everything. But go ahead, Mitch. What you?
No, I was going to say, I told you earlier that maybe I'm just tired, but I watched only about 3/4 of it, and I was kind of looking at my watch and going, "Oh boy, there's another 15, 20 minutes of this. It's fine," but I wasn't compelled to wake up and watch the rest of it. I stopped it and I caught up with it today because I knew we were doing this tonight, but I was really not freaking out like I had to go watch it. But I did jump ahead and watch 7 from beginning to end, episode 7 with the crossover, because that was cool. The other one was, it was all right. But I did tell you the only significant moment in this whole episode was the reference to the Kelvin and George Kirk. And I said, oh, so now we are established in the Abrams universe, but then we're not, because the episode 7 contradicted some things with Pike's destiny. He's not going to be in a wheelchair like Bruce Greenwood was the actor that played him in the
Kelvin films.
Now it's all fucked up because wait, so we're in the Kelvin, but we're not in the Kelvin.
It's a third.
It's a
new Trek. It's a new Trek continuity.
Yeah, it is. It's a totally new one. Yeah.
It cherry picks from the Kelvin universe and from the canon of Prime Trek.
That means we could totally relax now because we don't have to keep going, well, this isn't going to line up with this and that and this and that, because it's its own thing now. It's like,
I don't know.
It's like DC Comics. Every couple years they reboot, and all that other stuff you knew about is all gone, and we're going to go this way until we come up with a new one.
Wayne, did you make that point to me, or did my friend Scott Larson make that point to me?
Oh, about
which one?
DC?
About comparing it to like really just comic.
No, it wasn't myself.
It must have been my buddy Scott.
Oh, I thought about it today. After I talked to you, I thought about it because I was at a comic store and the guy had boxes of Convergence books, like 10 for $1, because he couldn't get rid of them. And we were talking about how that was the big deal, and then that bombed, and whatever the new one was called, I can't even remember anymore. Was that DCU before Rebirth? I think it was. Convergence.
New 52.
No, New 252 was before Convergence.
When they moved to LA, wasn't that the Convergence for that?
Oh no, that was that event, absolutely. Right. And I liked a lot of the 1-shots and 2-shots that came out, but the actual main Convergence event did not float my boat. No. I was offered, do you want to speak to the writer of Convergence? And I said no, because I don't want to. And ironic, here I am shitting on Star Trek, but I'm like, I really don't want to have a guest on and go, hey, you know why your story sucks? Again, and I felt bad for the guy, because I'm sure he had marching orders from DC to do the stories a certain way. But back to Trek, and I don't know I honestly don't know, and we can get into it more as we talk about episode 7. But man, I'm telling you, I'm still very blah about James Kirk.
Yeah,
and I really he is a follower on these Strange New World shows. I'm disregarding the last episode of the first season because obviously it was an alternate universe. But I suppose we could say the same thing about the time travel episode with Lon.
Right.
But it's like this Jim Kirk, and I understand that the regular cast should be more prominent than a guest star, but it is Jim Kirk, and as I keep saying, charisma, command.
Mm-hmm.
And even though this was Uhura's problem, I would have liked him to be a bit more take charge. I mean, he did it to a degree, and this is a little bit more like a typical Prime Universe James Kirk, but I'm just not feeling it from this guy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think he's just doing a different take on it, that he's probably more of a modern take of a...
Define
a
modern take, please.
I don't know.
That's pretty general.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they wanted to outshine Pike, because Pike is the star of this show, and you don't want Kirk to be, because we all know who Kirk is, and we all know he's going to become Superman, but it's kind of like you're watching the Golden Age stuff, and you don't want to see the 80s Superman there because you know he's better than that. Maybe they don't want to.
I so hear you, Mitch, and maybe in that vein that this is still, I mean, he's now a first officer, of course, and that's fine, of the Farragut, but I think they are more worried about, we only have room for one alpha male on this show.
Right.
And it's going to be Anson Mount and Chris Pike. And I understand it to a degree, but I've made this comparison before, much like the original Battlestar Galactica, when Lloyd Bridges shows up as Commander Kane, he's got we got to attack, we're going to do this. And Lauren Green's like, no, we don't have to do that. And you had two alpha males fighting for dominance. And that's good, because conflict is good. And especially in that first or last episode from the first season, it's like, no, this is a Captain Kirk, and again, and I understand that he is a first officer in this capacity, and Pike is the fleet captain. It was very weird that we never saw a captain of the Farragut or even interiors of the Farragut at any time in this episode, but whatever. I still say the Jim Kirk that I grew up with, and yes, it happened to be played by William Shatner, but even Chris Pine managed to do this, even with, you'll forgive me, Wink, because I'm not making fun of you when it says a modern interpretation of Captain Kirk. I do think that there is a charisma element to Kirk that is not there in Paul Wesley, where, again, they're doing all the right things with his character in terms of Lieutenant Kirk is now the first officer and stuff, and watch out for this guy. But that said, I don't buy the performance. I just don't. I don't know. I wish I did.
It could just be that he's still young in Starfleet and that he just hasn't matured into the charisma role yet.
I think charisma, you're born with it, man. And like I've said before, I think Cadet Kirk and Ensign Kirk would be a guy like, I don't know who that guy is, but he's going places. I want to listen to what he has to say. It's that young Lincoln, young JFK kind of vibe. Wait, Mitch, did you want to inject?
No, I was going to say, maybe it's like a Shelby thing when they had Shelby and Riker button heads on it. She was this go-getter, aggressive type, and she's like, you're lazy, stay out of my way because I'm going for your job. And maybe it's just the writing. And maybe it's not the actor. Maybe
it is the writing.
They haven't written him to be a dick. To like, hey, I'm coming over and taking over this ship because I like this thing. You know?
He doesn't have to be Shelby and you're in my way. But I would like to see more. I disagree, sir. I mean, and again, he could do it with respect. It's interesting. I saw the tease for this coming week's episode, and Ortegas kind of speaks out of turn, not realizing beyond the command crew who's about to enter the bridge. And everybody snapped to attention, and it was actually a legitimate military protocol moment of, oh boy, I said something I really should have said. I'm sorry. So that was nice, and maybe we'll get more of that. Actually, next week's, and I don't even want to spoil if people haven't seen the trailer, next week's episode looks hopeful. But I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Oh, Pelia, and I made this point with Wayne, Pelia and Number One's conflict, that finally we find out at the end of the episode, like, why are you butting heads with me? And Pelia's like, oh, I know why, because I replaced Hemmer as chief engineer. And then Una's like, oh yeah, Hemmer and I were really close. Now forgive me. But we have had, at that point, 16 episodes of Strange New Worlds. I can't think of one scene from season 1 or certainly not season 2 because Hemmer was dead. But I don't remember any scenes. And all you need is 30 seconds or even less of interaction between Una and Hemmer saying, "Oh God, man, remember back into the academy when X happened?" Or, "Well, you always, even just a little playful."
But John, do you really need that?
Yes.
Why?
Yes, I do.
You don't have to have everything fed to you. Sometimes you have to just accept it.
No, it's Wayne, if I may, and I appreciate your disagreeing. Show don't tell. And for them to, he was my friend and all this other BS. It's like, well, you had 10 episodes, and I know Hemmer was only in 4 or 5 of them, but you had other opportunities. And show it to us. Show us. It doesn't take that much time. And I do think that there is, and I say this about all of New Trek, and actually even more particularly about Strange New Worlds. You have to believe the universe you're in, that they are showing us. And I mean that more in terms of other little sniggly things that bother me about this show, like the way they play with Spock and everything. And it's like, if you just think everything is a joke, or just, oh yeah, by the way, X, Y, and Z about these 2 characters that were crew members that you made us invest emotion about Hemmer and stuff. So, like, again, it seemed like Hemmer and Uhura were the only ones that really, you got a little bit of interaction even with Pike and Hemmer. But it's like, again, where's this coming from? I do think you need to show it. But instead they choose to tell it. And it was like, what? Oh, okay, I guess. I'm shrugging. And it's like, I'm sorry, it shouldn't be that kind of reaction. I mean, I assume, Wayne, you just rolled with it, which is fine.
Oh, I didn't just roll. I don't need to be spoon-fed everything. These people were working together for several years. They've had several tours together. We've seen them in the original, the first season when Uhura first comes to the captain's luxurious lounge for dinner. Hemmer was there cutting vegetables.
Yes, he was.
Obviously, he had an interaction with the senior crew members.
No,
I would have assumed
with Pike.
No, not just with Pike, because Una was there too.
Una was there, but again, there was
no. Oh my God,
exchange.
John! You don't have to have everything given to you.
I will say, it's not asking for things to be spoon-fed. It's establishing relationships. We've seen other relationships on the ship be established with Ortegas and Uhura, and Una and La'an, and they've managed to spend time with these. And again, all of a sudden, oh yeah, Hemmer and I were best friends. What? Sorry, again, Wayne, and I really do appreciate that you try to get, well, I guess maybe they were thinking XYZ. That's not your job. The job is the writers to provide.
But if I've already assumed that, then they have done their job.
Again, you're like, okay. I mean, again, I'm like you said, I don't know what your initial reaction was. Mine was that came out of left field.
No, to me, they were members of a senior crew. They would have obviously had interactions in the past. I don't need to see every interaction between all the senior crew members.
I don't either. But if there is a friendship, I need to see that friendship. I'm sorry. I do need to see that friendship. I understand, Wayne, please. I do realize that the crew does speak to each other. It's not that oblique to me. But what is, like, where did that come from is, oh, yeah, Hemmer and I were really good friends. Again, all you needed, even in that dinner scene with Uhura, when Hemmer's chopping vegetables, you ever have KP back at the Academy days or anything like, just something. Nothing.
I don't think you need it.
Bad writing. Mitch, your thoughts on that? Any?
Well, I have no thoughts. But I do agree with you. I do not like when they tell you when you have to make up your own stories to fill in the holes, because I go, hey man, these guys get paid a lot of money to write stories, and I shouldn't be doing their fucking job for them, because that's what they're there for. And I'm not supposed to go, well, I suppose there was a couple years in shows that we didn't see that these people hung out, and that's what they're referring to, because I don't like when they do that, because it's like, I want to see that. Or, you know what? Sometimes they do it and it just comes across as contrivance. Like you just said, like a poor writing. Like I remember in Attack of the Clones, we all knew that Obi-Wan and Anakin knew each other. That's been established because they're nerds, but they're on the elevator. And he goes, remember that time I saved you from that nest of Gundar? Oh, yes. We're good friends, aren't we? And I'm like, yeah, everybody in this movie theater kind of knows that they know each other, but it was like, we got to do that. And in Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, remember that time I met you in Germany? You had a gun at your head. And and I always get mad when I hear that stuff, because it's like they just wrote that in there to just to quickly sum up a relationship between people without really, I don't know, it doesn't come across as
providing the
genuine. And then suddenly it's like, well, Una and I were best friends in the academy. Oh, we were? Oh, okay. When did that happen? I didn't see that for the last 15, 16 episodes. I thought.
Oh, Twilight Zone. He's in the Phantom Zone. He'll pop out. Let's all be in the Phantom Zone with Mitch.
Anyway,
all right, back, Mitch, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying. I don't like it when they do that. I know they have to sometimes, but
it's Laura Dern and Princess Leia in the sequels. Yeah. Oh, we've been friends for a long time. Really? Yeah. All right. You say
Who's
so.
This person? I never heard of her before.
And then of course it's go read the book. They explain it. Hey, maybe it's in John Jackson Miller's Pike book.
No, it's not. I read that book. There's no
and you're right. Because I was going to correct myself, because that book, I haven't read it yet, but it takes place between the seasons, between 1 and 2. So Hemmer's already dead. The other thing is, man, I'll tell you, with only 3 episodes left, I really wish. Yes, thank you, Mitch. 100%. I really wish they gave Carol Kane more to do than just lame comic relief. I really do.
I thought she was going to be. I told you before, and shame on us, because we assumed who the trilogy, their trinity, was going to be. I said it was Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. It was Picard, Riker, and Data on Next Gen. Yeah. And it was Chakotay and Tuvok. Then it became 7 of 9, and
No, I think you're. But I think initially it was Tuvok.
And it was Cisco and Odo and.
Well, Kira. I would say Cisco, Kira, and Dax. I would say on Deep Space.
Okay.
But anyway,
you always seem to get that, and then even the photos, the publicity photos, was always Pike, Spock, and number 1. So I'm like, I'm assuming that's. But and I told you before, and I said I'm fine with they give like some of the side characters their own episode. They did that years ago, but when you had 20-something episodes, it wasn't so bad because Picard and Riker were in the 2/3 of them, and then you had little spin-offs. And the same thing with the old show. It was like Kirk, Spock, and McCoy mostly, and then here and there seems to be that Pike is a guest star on his own show this season anyway. He's hardly been on it. Number 1 is barely on it, and thank God she's coming to Terrificon on July 28th to the 30th to see Rebecca Romijn, because I haven't seen much of her on this season, and I don't know if she's working on a show or a movie, because sometimes they have conflict with that, and they're not on because they're doing
But it's
something.
Been with Una, it's been 2 seasons of not much, and I would never want to get into somebody's financial business, but I wonder if, as a negotiation, maybe to do a full season, her price might have been too high, and they're like, well, that's too much, but what if we pay you this much less, and you're really only in 5 episodes a season? Well, not even as a guest star, but more like that. Hold on, real fast. Wesley wanted to acknowledge the Hemmer Una relationship. So what if that scene established the relationship? I again, Wesley, I don't. It just seemed to come out of the blue to me.
The actor that played Hemmer is gone, so it's kind of hard now. It's like, oh yeah, I was friends with that guy.
And again, I mean, like his non-participation in the episode, I was expecting him to come back without the makeup, like Robot Girl in Discovery, and that's fine. I'm with you though, Mitch. I had the preconceived notion that it primarily would be about Pike, Una, and Spock. I don't mind that the way they're framing these episodes, that this week it's a Chapel episode, this week it's Aurora. I don't mind that, but I do think there needs to be a B plot where you see Anson Mount. I mean, he is
the guy. Yeah.
He's the captain. Because again, and then that's why I don't think you need 20 or more episodes to feature other command or crew members that you're gonna look at and see every week. I don't mind
Yeah.
that because again, it's an opportunity to learn more about each individual character instead of Kirk following Uhura around in
Right.
episode 6. I wish it was Una or Pike.
Well,
doing
and the other, why are you bringing Kirk? We know who Kirk's going to become.
That's what I
but
mean. Why?
Wasn't
Yes.
there that photo? Didn't you say that a week or so ago? They had like a cast photo. They were at a table, and didn't they have Kirk in the photo? I'm like, oh, so he's going to be more prominent on this show now? They're going to slowly phase him in, or
I
phase
guess.
him in. I get, but that doesn't happen for years, though. It's like, why
Well-
are we jumping ahead?
Well, and Ed, my guest earlier today, made a very he's kind of with me where this is really a sanitized TOS era show where they feel like let's fix all the problems with the 60s show. Kirk is a little too misogynist. Let's dial that back. God, hi, can I help? Or hey, you look like you give a friend. Don't hit on me. Okay.
Well-
I didn't think he was hitting on her, but okay, whatever. You know, I mean, it's these reflexes of womanizer, stay away. You know, I want to get
You know
into.
what?
Go ahead.
It kind of takes away. I don't like seeing Kirk on the show because I like to watch the Kirk and Spock relationship that developed on the original series. Because remember, you seem annoyed, Mr. Spock. Oh, remember when they were first writing who Spock was and the Vulcan character and the non-emotion, so the audience would learn who Vulcans were and all that stuff. It's like a shorthand. We know what's going to happen, but they shouldn't even be bumping into each other yet. You know what I mean? Because
I agree.
it waters down what's going to happen in the future because it's like, oh, well, there was a magic to them, and now
You can't live up to the original.
right.
And to no, this is the first time Kirk and Spock meet or whatever. It's like, nice try. I want to ask about and this
Yeah,
is
wait a minute, go back. You read all those books. I know somewhere in the 70s or early 80s, I read a book that was Pike leaving the Enterprise. It was called Enterprise, actually. Now
that
I
is
think about
exactly
it,
right.
letters.
Yes.
And it was when Pike was leaving the ship and Kirk was coming aboard, and it was his first time on the ship. And all. Again, I know it's fiction and not canon.
Well, it's a novel
but
as opposed
it
to
was
canon.
a novel,
But yeah.
yeah, but it was good. Actually,
It
it
was
was later
great.
than the 80s or something.
It was
And
in the 80s. It was
a
great.
nice book. Just even the J.J. Abrams movies, when they had Kirk coming on board and meeting Spock for the first time, there are all these other, first time they hook up and not hook up, but meet each other.
Yeah.
I don't know. Why do we have to? Why is he even on the show?
I so agree.
Leave
And
George Kirk there, Sam Kirk. That's
well,
fine.
I wanted to get into Sam Kirk, and you'll forgive me. This is a picture from the first season, but it was kind of my favorite picture of Sam Kirk in the first season. Unconscious, really not effective. At least he was part of the solution in the Uhura episode. But once again, drama. Kirk and Sam and Jim are at odds because of their father, and Jim's measuring up more to George Senior's expectations than than Sam Kirk is, and it's like completely unnecessary. I am really again disappointed at how little we are getting of Sam Kirk. At least this 6th episode gave us a bit more. And I thought again that he's a slob and the butt of all these jokes and everything. It's like, man, when I saw him in that first episode in the first season, I'm like, well, all right, great. We're going to learn more about Sam Kirk. And all we've learned is he's a comic relief.
Yeah. I thought he was off the show, honestly. I was like, oh, maybe they wrote him off and I missed an episode or something, or he was just visiting. Then I'm like, oh, he's still on the ship. I didn't know that.
Oh, he's basically in the lower decks.
He is the lower decks guy. Yeah.
Probably. Well, and he's the one telling everybody on the ship, stay away from my brother. He's a horn dog, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh, you do know my brother. So, yeah, I would have, it was at least a bit more like a real Star Trek episode.
Yeah.
So, but at best I'd give it a C because I agree with Mitch. It was kind of boring. It didn't grab me. I don't know.
And I said so far, actually, and I hate to say that, this whole season's been kind of like, oh, I used to look forward. Last year, I was jumping up in the morning on Thursday morning because I'd watch it like at 5 or 6 a.m. as soon as I can get a hold of it. Now I'm kind of like, oh, yeah. Not as much as Discovery when it was a slog to go watch that. And I only watched it because of this show because I was like, I would not be watching this show if it wasn't.
Well,
for
let's get into 7, and eventually I do want to talk to Wayne,
Mhm.
who's at San Diego Comic-Con and was at the Hall H Trek presentation, where a lot of information was dumped, a lot of teaser scenes of Discovery and a teaser promo for the musical episode. But let's talk about episode 7. And right away, Jonathan says episode 7 was a pleasant surprise, probably the most Trekish episode in a while. Mr. Vic says I finished 6 and 7, a little confused with 6, really enjoyed 7. I will even say, from a general standpoint, I liked episode 7, the crossover. I really did. I have my nitpicks. Again, it seems like New Trek in general is like, watch out for the butterfly effect, and they proceed to trample on butterflies, as Wayne is saying in under his face, and what's the name that he's got, so many butterflies. And again, I'll get into it. I like to, what I found interesting, and I'll show the difference. Jack Quaid is a very consistent Boimler, whether he's animated or real life. Tawny Newsome, I liked live action Mariner a lot more than animated Mariner, and I'll bring up a picture of the difference. Those hooded eyes that they give Mariner in the animated version and in the comic book, and it's that it's that know-it-all look on her face, and it is so annoying. And thank God Tawny Newsome played Mariner like a real person.
Mhm.
It still had a bit of that attitude, but it was toned down. And I really liked the way they both played the characters in real life. I thought they were great as far as their portrayals of their characters, and I liked the interactions between the Strange New World cast and the two of them. And it was appropriate. Like, all right, I don't know what the deal with this fanboy and this fangirl. They're acting like, we're rock stars, and all we are just people doing our jobs. That's the subtext and everything. It was a lot, as it should be. Animation sometimes needs to be over the top. I get that, but I do find myself more annoyed by animated Mariner than I was real life Mariner. But overall, I'd give it a B, and only because, again, I'm a nitpicking jerk, and I recognize that. And also, and forgive me, guys, I don't mean to keep going on, but they telegraphed that they were going to do this funny episode in the trailers for this season. So I was ready for it. And I was like, okay, that's fine. What I wasn't ready for was the upcoming musical that we'll talk about, but also the 2 or 3 humor episodes that we already got. And it's like, you only have 10 episodes. Can we get a little more Star Trek with our Star Trek, please? And apparently we can't, but whatever.
All right.
I love this episode. It was a
gonna
live
say-
action Lower Decks.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. I was going to say it's probably the best episode of season 2.
I agree.
It's one of my favorite Trek episodes, maybe of all time, because I love time travel episodes and the crossover, like Trials and Tribulations. All that was always well done. And this one, I have to hand it to my man, who's going to be at Terrificon on July 28th to the 30th in Huntsville, Connecticut, Mr. Jonathan Frakes, who directed this episode, because I do believe his experience, not only as a director, but familiarity with Star Trek, obviously, that he knows the subtleties of directing the people that are on the ship, so they don't, because that's, and when I do see him, I know we're not allowed because of the strike, and that's unfortunate, because I have Rebecca Romaine and Frakes, and we have this panel planned where they were going to talk about Trek, but we can't do that, and that's the way life is, so shut up and go on. So anyway, the restraint that the actors had, the voiceover actors, what's his name? Quaid.
Jack Quaid.
Boimler and Mariner.
Yeah, because I didn't even realize, I know it was the actress that does Mariner's voice, but as you well know, watching the show, I hate Mariner as a character because she's always like a number 11 when everybody else is like a 7 or 8, because she's over the top and screaming all the time. And I thought, oh my God, if that person was in a real flesh and blood situation, they would lock her up, because they'd say this woman has issues. She can't talk or act normal around people because she's always screaming and throwing her arms and all this, because that's animated. And I was very curious to see how that was going to translate into a live action and not become Roger Rabbit. And they pull it off really well, because they were all very conservative with their gestures and their acting, and they weren't over the top. And she didn't scream. She didn't have that shrill voice, and she seemed like a person. And it's just amazing that they managed to pull that off. Where it would be like a live action Bugs Bunny. You know what I mean? It's like, how would that be in real life?
Yes.
And somehow they convinced me that, oh my God, this is what it would be like if they're watching this. I can see that, you know?
Yeah, please, Wayne. I'm sorry.
And they actually thrown shade on their own show because they said it's so quiet here.
Yeah.
Agreed. No, and again, for the audio audience, I'm showing an image of Mariner animated, and then showing Mariner and Boimler as real life people. Mm-hmm. And yeah, again, there was a bit of a dial down as real people, which I appreciated as well. It did bother me as we were talking about the butterfly effect. Don't break anything, and then they proceed to break everything, and they tell Spock, "Boy, you shouldn't be smiling." Those, man, I was looking so hard for. I guess I could have used my phone to freeze frame and take a picture of those ridiculous smiles that Spock had, and that was another like, all right, you're trying way too hard. Instead, and they did have scenes where Chapel and Spock were talking, and you could have had Spock laugh there, or even when he did laugh with Boimler there or whatever. But that ridiculous, like Joker almost smile that they gave, it's like, tone it down, man. And again, smashing butterflies. You're not like this later. Shut up, man. Pike. Oh, you know about your future? Shut up. Jesus. Go on.
But that's a Lower Decks episode. What they were doing would be exactly what they would be doing in Lower Decks.
You're right, but
it was like I thought it was just.
Maybe Wayne's right. It began with an animated Lower Decks and ended with it, and the opening ship, the Enterprise, the opening whatever credits was done in an animated style. So maybe you're right. We were actually watching in a Lower Decks episode.
Well, I understand the synergy of making the shows mesh. It is one of the things that I feel I don't like about Lower Decks, that it is so self-referential, and that half the jokes are, man, Tom Paris would never do that, or Riker's God, I did like the scene with the saddle, and I did like that he made the Riker maneuver, and said Riker, that was okay because it was subtle and it was there, that's fine. But yeah, I just, again, don't break any butterflies, and then they smash the shit out of most of the butterflies.
Well,
but you're dealing with the one character who would smash every butterfly because he just can't help it.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Well, and the other thing is too, I mean, what's the one? Was it Ortega? No, Khan went into the parallel universe, and the temporal police came and told her, by doing that introduction of the temporal time cops, or whatever the fuck they're called, then they should show up at every time travel incident. Like, as soon as Boimler showed up, they should have been there. It's kind of like in Loki, where they have the whatever the people were that came and wiped out whenever they were
Temporal Authority.
Temporal Authority, yeah. It's like, oh, sorry, and they just put that little bomb down, and it wiped out that branch to keep the main timeline secure.
Sure.
If you're gonna have that, then when is it okay that this happened and Kirk went to see Edith Keeler? If you're going to say that there are these people watching over time, when is it really bad that they have to show up and clean up?
Well, I told you my theory that the series is going to end with one of these temporal cops coming on and saying, we did some further research. You really don't belong in this timeline. They whisk her away. That resets everything. You can walk into TOS now. Even though what we experienced in Strange New Worlds happened, they don't know that. So the slate has been cleaned. And hold on, because also, Wayne, before I get to you, I want to include this comment from Jonathan. And that is, and I agree with him, I wouldn't mind if Star Trek stayed away from time travel for a while. We've gotten it in Strange New Worlds, Picard, and Discovery. Would like to have new villains and new situations. Wayne, go ahead.
Our fallen comrade, Franco, has a theory that he would love to expand upon on the next time he meets with us, which would probably explain a lot of what we're seeing and why it and why it's occurring in the fashion that it is.
Okay, I look forward to it.
Well, I thought it was odd that when Khan was there and she mentioned to Boimler in the hallway about the time thing, and he goes, "Oh, you've time traveled this and that," and then I was expecting him to say like, "I never heard of you," and then I was like, "Oh,
Well,
that would have been interesting." Who are you? Yeah.
Or again, as I like to call her, Susie Hitler. She has too famous of a last name.
Yeah. Well, we don't
And
like
I was
to drop the Hitler
expecting,
word.
but if I may, I would like to see people from the Lower Decks era recoil because they just met a Noonien Singh, and
Right.
they know the dirty secrets of Noonien Singh,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, and that should be, oh my God, whatever. And again, that's what I mean. I don't mean to be pejorative when I call her Susie Hitler, but my
Right.
point is, when you have a famous name of someone that almost conquered the world, maybe you should change your name.
Well, she could be a descendant of James Caan. They don't know. Could be like an actor. Jimmy Caan. They let it go. How do you spell that? No,
they spell it differently.
C-A-A-N.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's father was
My
good.
great grandfather was in The Godfather. Show me more.
Exactly. So they let it go. They're like, "Oh, which one? Oh, that one."
No. But I am with Jonathan. There is, again, too much Borg, too much time travel, too much Khan. And
why
it's
did they bring back that skinny pirate? What was her name? She was on that.
God, Mitch, I'm really glad you said that because
she was good.
I was
expecting
her to come back this season and Cybok to come back this season.
Yeah.
Now,
why not?
I don't know if they're ever going to come back, frankly. And further, as I was telling Wayne, and maybe I said this to you as well, Mitch, off the air, God, with these strikes, it could be 3 years or more before we get another season of Strange New Worlds.
Yep.
And that makes me more frustrated that we're only getting 10 episodes and the comedies and musical we're getting. Go ahead, Wayne.
You also got to take it, what you've just said, and we really only have 2 story episodes left.
Yep. Right.
We have 8 and 10.
Correct.
We still haven't got into the whole Gorn subplot that was introduced in 1, and 9 is going to be, it's going to be my favorite episode. So
why? Did you find out something at San Diego about episode 9?
No, I'll tell you why, and I'll show you actually rather than unlike new Star Trek, I'll show you rather than tell. For the audio audience, I'm showing the poster for the musical episode. That's episode 9.
Right.
I'm actually intrigued by the teaser that Will Wheaton had at the Ready Room about episode 7, the crossover. Episode 8 looks, dare I say, promising from a premise standpoint. I won't spoil if you guys want to see it on your own or hear about it on your own as far as the audience goes. But I hope again that maybe that'll be a real thing. But yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, Wayne, because this Gorn War is coming. I have a bad feeling we're going to end on a cliffhanger on episode 10 with something to do with the Gorn War, and that's again like, way to go, idiots!
It almost gives you that same feeling like what happened to Galactica with the strike, where we were kind of like somewhere in the storyline, strike happened, and it died. Like when they came back to it, it just didn't have that same feel.
I always think of Heroes as the ultimate show that suffered. It was like the greatest first season ever. And then the strike happened, and then they came back, and they never recovered.
They lost their mojo, 100%, man. No, you're right.
This show sucks. What happened?
Yeah. Speaking of Heroes, I'm hoping to have Jeff Loeb. We've been emailing back and forth, and he said, just touch base with me after the convention, and we'll figure out a day and everything.
Yeah, I saw Jeff this week.
Oh, that's cool.
San Diego.
How's he doing?
Pretty good.
Good.
Yeah, he was sitting beside Joyce Chen.
Oh, that's great.
There you go.
No, there you go. No, I'm looking forward to talking to Jeff and catching up. I wanted him post Marvel television to relax and regroup, but it's like and I also I had nothing but old contact info, and I bothered Jeff Johns, and I'm like, hey, let Loeb know that I want to talk to him. And Jeff's a mensch, and he's like, hey, good to hear from you, man. Yeah, sorry, here's my new.
You forgot to mention they announced not only did they announce season 4 of Lower Decks coming on in September, but when I watched the Ready Room, they told them they have the order for season 5 of that. And the thing of it is, because it's animation, and that's not affected by the Screen Actor Guild strike, because the voiceover people can do work.
Yes.
I guess that means they can go full steam ahead. Don't they wish they didn't cancel Prodigy now and do some more animated Star Trek so we can
Well, God, I'm really glad you said that, Mitch, because honestly, season 2 of Prodigy was in post-production when Paramount pulled the plug, and
Right.
I haven't gotten confirmation from the showrunners, the Habermans,
Yeah.
but I do have their info. And again, with the strike, I don't want to mess with anything, but I had hoped, much like Batman Cape Crusader, which won't be on Max, but they did put it out there for another platform to grab it, and Amazon grabbed that. I am
Oh.
hoping that somebody will grab Prodigy, and they'll not only do a second season, but bring the first season back. Secondly, though, that's a very good point, and I really hope if Paramount is smart that they do see, all right, well, to fill the time, we've got this almost completed second season of one of the animated shows. Go ahead, Wayne.
And they're going to be at the Star Trek convention in Vegas, so it's something I can ask them because they can actually talk about it since they're in a
Animation.
different guild.
Right.
Yes, they
Right.
are. Yeah.
Right, and
Because-
that's the other thing, Mitch, that obviously you do have animation panels.
Yeah, we do. I was going to say we are allowed because they don't see their faces, their voices are heard. There will be several voice actor panels at Terrificon.
You know what I
Yes,
heard,
that's
Wayne? I was telling
Mhm.
Mitch this earlier today. There was an Atlanta casting agent on local Atlanta TV talking about the impact on the Atlanta economy with all this TV and film shutting down in Atlanta as well.
Yeah.
And he said something interesting. He said actors that are background actors, formerly known as extras, whatever. I mean, that's so like, I'm a janitor. No, you're a maintenance custodial engineer. Yeah, it's like, okay, whatever. But background actors are being hired not to be on camera, but they're being hired to fill audience seats in these live talk shows, like Live with Kelly, and I forget who her co-host. Oh, it's her husband, Mark. Kelly and Mark, or some of these other daytime shows in various cities. And it's like they are not on camera at all, but they are there to fill seats and cheer and applaud to if it's kind of an empty house. And I noticed it on the infamous Fox conservative comedy show Gutfeld, where I could kind of tell, being in broadcasting, when there maybe is only a couple dozen people laughing and actually in attendance, and now all of a sudden the audiences are very full. And I wonder if it's these background actors seat filling in this capacity. And I found that really interesting, that is another way that they can be employed without breaking strike rules.
Yeah, and with the animation, they are under a different guild entirely,
Yes.
which was created by a certain guy who owned a mouse that really pushed for it. And that's the reason why anyone in the animation industry, they don't fall under SAG, they don't fall under the WGA, and they not I'm going to talk about it, but J. Michael Straczynski was talking about Babylon: The Road Home last night when I saw it at the panel, because he was able to talk about that because he was not subject to any of the other strike provisions.
Ed brings this up, and I'm glad. The second half of Prodigy on Blu-ray and DVD come out at the end of September, so I'm glad to hear that, because that was my concern too. Was like, are you at least going to make Prodigy the full season of Prodigy available? I was telling Ed, my guest earlier today, who's in the UK and had never seen Prodigy, was going to get to it and now can't through Paramount Plus. And I said, well, you got to get the DVDs. And I told him, I'm like, and especially with what I see as the missteps of Strange New World's second season, I'm like, Prodigy is the best, the most Star Trek-y written Star Trek show that's out there right now. I mean, obviously Picard season 3 too, as well. But no, I told him, I'm like, Prodigy shocked the hell out of me, because it's made to be a Y7 show, but it's not talking down at kids, and it actually had some very clever, very Star Trek plots and everything. So, but yeah. So all right. So Mitch, did you see the whole Ready Room? Did you see the teaser for next week?
I did. I said it was the only Ready Room I watched because I wanted to see Jonathan Frakes on the show.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, I'm. You know what? I'm sad that it's coming down to like 2 episodes or 3 episodes, 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be a little dry spell in between.
No,
it,
only a
but-
couple weeks because
No, I'm just saying before season 3 gets going again. Because let me
it's
tell
gonna
you,
be
I can
years.
see.
It's gonna be years.
I could tell you all the stuff that goes on in the world of comic convention promoters. Originally, I was, and Wayne knows this, weeks and months ago, back in April, I think, in May, I was trying to arrange for flights for Miss Rebecca Romaine to get here from Toronto because she was supposed to be filming season 3, I guess, of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So we were trying to figure out which airport to go from Toronto to Hartford, and then the strike happened and all that too. But she's still coming to the show. Not saying she's not, but I'm just saying all that work to get. Oh, I'm glad I didn't buy those flights now because it would have been up to shit creek. But
that's good because maybe it won't be that long. Maybe it'll only be 2 years. I don't know, and I don't know if they finish filming season 3 or not. I mean, I don't want. I don't want them.
Well, you could do an abridged season, John. What if they did like, here's 4 episodes now, and then they take a break, and then they somehow come back, or you think they'll wait till they have 10 done?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I really don't know. Yeah. Obviously, they didn't start shooting the Section 31 movie with Michelle Yeoh yet.
Nope.
All we have is, and Wayne, you were there, so we know that season 4 of Lower Decks, as Mitch said too, comes back in November.
September.
September.
It's September. More in my mouth, but also that they already did renew season 5, so that's good. Discovery is not coming back till 2024.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
They didn't put a date yet. They just said expect it in 2024. That's it.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So if you were getting Paramount Plus, well, how many episodes is Lower Decks? 10, you think? So it would have
Just
gone
10.
September to December. Yeah, all right. Because I'm
not really. No, it's
no.
It's more like September to November, but yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if you were buying Paramount Plus just for Trek, and that was all they had to offer, you'd be like, well, I'm getting my $5 a month back because what am I buying this for? You know, I think of that though. I think of that with Disney Plus because I go, I'm a Marvel guy. I initially got it for that, but then I'm a Star Wars guy. But now it seems less Marvel and more, I guess, more Star Wars. But after
Loki, isn't Loki coming up in the fall?
Loki's in November, yeah.
Oh, November, okay.
Yeah, coming up next is Ahsoka, with Rosario Dawson. So pretty much when that ends, it dovetails into Loki. And I don't know whatever happened to What If season 2, where the hell that thing is. That's an animated.
Well, I know it was made. I spoke to one of the producers of What If, and maybe again, we'll see what happens. Because
I don't know. I think they're rethinking all this streaming stuff. I mean, maybe it's going to be a totally new entertainment distribution system in the next couple of years. Because it's not, honestly, I think streaming, it works for Netflix, but for the big networks like Paramount, it's a failed project. And
they're losing
tons of money on the productions, on the subscribers. It's not generating what they want. It's hurting their box office because they've trained people to stay home now and don't go to movies because don't worry, it'll be on streaming soon enough. So you kind of like, oh, well, you can have everything now, and they're not making money. And that's something they hate. And they're going to sit there and figure out, oh, bullshit, we're going back to making money. So I'm sorry you subscribe to us on Disney Plus, but guess what? If you want to see any of these Marvel shows now, go back to the movie theater. And then maybe they could focus on making a good, big movie as opposed to, 6 or 7 little TV episodes that aren't that great, So.
I don't know. I really don't know. Let's I want to get back to Star Trek because this musical episode is happening the week after Terrificon.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, I'm glad, and Wayne had to step away for a second. When he comes back, though, he was at Hall H for all these announcements. On the one hand, I am glad that at least for the musical, they did write 10 original songs that I assume will have to do with story and character in the same way the Buffy musical did. What I didn't want to happen, and I was kind of nervous, was when Flash and Supergirl did their musical episodes.
Oh, I remember that.
And all it was like Glee. And it was like, oh, look, it's Grant Gustin singing "Let the Sun," Aquarius, and "Let the Sun Shine In."
No, I think of the Batman animated series episode. Remember they did a musical on that one?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good
example. Well done. Yeah,
and that's my point is that I at the very, I mean, I saw the trailer
Yeah,
and I see the choreographed dancing,
yeah.
and it just looks stupid. I'm sorry, it just
know.
does.
I've
I
been thinking of those Donnie Marie skits when they used to have Star Wars.
yes,
Donnie Marie, remember
yes.
they used to have that in the
Oh, no,
'70s, and
they pop up on Twitter and Facebook.
yeah, I know, but I'm always reminded of the cheesiness of all that, and I can't separate that. I don't think Broadway musical. I think of shitty '70s variety show with
Right.
plastic sets and bad outfits, and hey, I think of the Star Wars holiday special. It comes to
Exactly.
mind, you know.
Exactly. That song that B. Arthur sings in the cantina.
I don't know. Does it
Yeah.
water Star Trek down? No, I guess not, because there's always been music in all these shows.
Well-
Not the original series so much, but Next Gen had that whole Cole Porter, Gershwin, or whatever the hell they would
Right.
always sing. You know.
I don't know. We'll see. Wayne,
Mhm.
tell us about the Hall H presentation.
The Hall H presentation basically was Scott Mantz, who's a entertainment reporter, but I also see him a lot. He does a lot of the moderating at the Star Trek conventions
Oh, absolutely.
in Vegas every year. And Hall H, basically, we saw the 5-minute first 5 minutes of Discovery. We saw the trailer for Lower Decks, which looks funny. They talked, and then we did the whole episode for the crossover.
That's cool. I'm glad they showed the whole thing. And I saw,
Oh yeah, no, we saw the whole thing.
if you go to StarTrek.com, you can see that 5-minute piece of Discovery that Wayne saw in Hall H, and the teaser commercial for the musical. You know, and again, I'm really glad that they were. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself. I'm glad that they released the crossover last night during Comic-Con weekend and didn't hold it. You know, I mean, I would have been okay because I know it was coming Thursday,
Mhm.
but I was pleasantly surprised that they dropped it as well last night. Go ahead, Wayne.
And that's what they did. As soon as we watched it, Scott came back and said, "You know what? As a bonus for everybody, at 4 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, we're releasing it. Paramount's going to release it for everybody. So tell your friends you've just seen it and that they have now a chance to watch it earlier.
Right.
Also, you're getting episode 8 next Thursday, so you're not going to be without an episode.
Right.
And tell your friends that."
Agreed. Oh, and Stanley, I agree with you here. Stanley says, I think Strange New Worlds needs bigger, higher stakes episodes. I completely agree with that, Stanley. I did like the general themes of the crossover. I think they conveyed the Lower Decks vibe as well as, you know, the Strange New World integrity, but still were able to mesh them. And I did think the last bit where the Strange New World's cast was animated and feeling the effects of the Orion drink that Mariner dropped on him and stuff.
That was funny.
That was funny. Yeah, that was funny.
And the same creature sucking on the nacelle.
Yeah, I saw in the opening credits. Yeah.
That was great. No, again, that's the thing, man. And again, if you telegraph us and say this is what's coming, and that's I accepted the body swap of Spock and T'Pring last year. It's like, okay, that's fine. You know, that's only 1 out of 10. But again, when we get 3 and a musical to come, it's like, all right, 40% of what you gave us is, to me, not why I come for that kind of programming. I'm looking for Star Trek. I don't think it's an unreasonable expectation to get action adventure and some interesting science fiction or moral questions and debates of, well, what's the right answer here? I mean, again, when I was talking to Ed earlier about Una's court case, they so loaded the dice on Starfleet being discriminatory versus, well, there is this thing about the eugenics. And yes, it was hundreds of years ago, but these bad things did happen. And we don't want them to happen again. And it's I mean, the whole idea of genetic manipulation and eugenics is a slippery slope, because if they find out how to go into your DNA or your pending child's DNA, and oh shit, you're going to give birth to a deaf kid, we can fix that. You're going to give birth to a blind kid, we can fix that. We're not there yet, but obviously those are some of the ambitions, but it is a slippery slope. And that's why I appreciated the Bashir DS9, eugenics episode about Bashir being genetically altered, and it's like, well, we assess your career, we listen to your captain. You're not out to conquer the universe. Okay, special dispensation, and Una should get by with special dispensation. And I don't believe the discriminatory attitudes that they have decided to put on this era's Starfleet. I'm like, I don't believe that. I kind of believe, and again, this isn't our history or our future. I like Gene Roddenberry's 60s idea of, well, the good news is 400 years from now, we're all going to get our shit together. We're not going to discriminate. We're going to do what we can to eliminate poverty, and those kind of needs and wants are going to disappear, because we'd like to think we are evolving and we are making ourselves better. I understand that we've still got a long way to go, and even maybe 400 years from now, we'll still have a long way to go. But a lot of the things that they address on New Trek, where they feel like they're representing the current problems, I'm like, I don't mean this in any negative way towards the LGBTQ community. I really don't think it's going to be an issue hundreds of years from now. I mean, we're doing everything we can now to make it better and more fair. And I think a lot of the people that are against it are frankly dying out now. So, yeah, go ahead, Wayne.
I think if you compare the writing styles between the original series, held itself up to a mirror to society and tried to reflect the issues that society was facing at the particular time and address them, however, plus also some action adventure. I don't think we're getting that. I think what they're trying to do is just almost a regular TV show, as opposed to like something that's driven by Star Trek, the mythology behind Starfleet.
Wayne, I'm sorry, and that's a reasonable explanation of what they're doing, but we don't need, if I could misquote Tina Turner, we don't need another run-of-the-mill teen romance show or anything else. I noticed too, by the way, and Mitch, I don't know if you noticed, but Will Reed made sure to mention that Tawny Newson was joining the Starfleet Academy writing team, and that worries me because Tawny Newson is a comedian. Now, she is very much a big Star Trek fan, so it may not be bad. But really, Wayne, and I understand you're seeing that as a justification of how they're doing things, but it's like when you tell me, like you did last week, well, you can't think about Star Trek when you watch Strange New Worlds. You got to get it out of your mind. Well, that's ridiculous. That's just I'm sorry. I just think that's ridiculous. And also to say, yeah, they want a more traditional romance drama and just drama in general. Well, F you. I'm sorry, you're doing Star Trek. I think you have an obligation of, as I've said before, staying within the parameters of Star Trek. By all means, tell a medical story, tell a courtroom story, tell a comedy. Don't tell a million comedies or several comedies when you only have 10 fucking episodes. I'm okay with stretching a bit, but to the point of when you're not doing Star Trek anymore, I think that's a fucking problem. But that's just me. Silence.
Yeah.
Golden.
Okay.
Mike says musical episodes are fine, but Trek does not need one. It's a waste of an entire episode in an already short 10-episode season, and this season has had too many lackluster episodes already. Indeed. Mr. Vic says, spend less per episodes and invest in more stories. I agree with that as well. I just, again, these folks are real. And listen, nobody sets out to do a bad show, and I recognize that. I just think they are really, as I keep using the metaphor, coloring outside the lines. And that's not why I come for Star Trek. Go ahead, Wayne.
I think I brought this up before. What is the background of the writers?
They're probably kids.
Then maybe they shouldn't have those jobs, Wayne. If they can't write science fiction and they can't write Star Trek, they have no business having those jobs. But as we know, writers are very cliquish. And hell, even Terry Matalas brought all those 12 Monkeys writers to Picard season 3. The good news is they like Star Trek. They know how to write science fiction. And really, Wayne, this is what I'm saying. When you say these things, it almost sounds like it's a justification for what we're getting.
I just think it's sometimes you just have to go with it because you're not going to get what you want at the end of the day.
Well,
I don't think
shouldn't be it shouldn't. I mean, we shouldn't be like, all right, we saw this coming. We only want the things we're familiar with. I'm saying, by all means, play and give us fresh stories. You got to still be in the parameters of Star Trek, and I think they stray from those parameters.
Oh, I agree. They are straying, but
that's again,
I can live with it.
If they made a Star Wars comedy and they said this is a Star Wars comedy, that would be one thing. But then if they made Luke the butt of all jokes, the way they have Spock, I think Star Wars fans would have a problem with it. They already did have a problem with Last Jedi because of the license that Rian Johnson took and Luke throwing away his lightsaber, and, being all bummed out and everything. And it's I think you could tell these are fresh characters. There's an opportunity to tell different stories. Even La'an, where I'm not really crazy about her being a condescendent, fine, play with that more. That's fine. Whatever. Again, I was willing to go down the path with Una being outed as an augment or however you want to describe her. Fine, but try a little harder and do better. And they can't because, like you said, what are their backgrounds? Their backgrounds are teen romance. Well, then don't write Star Trek. Go write a CW show.
Wow, that's hard.
Wow.
So we have to be
not hard at all.
So we got to become showrunners. Is that what you're saying?
No, and listen. I never claim. I mean, I have. In fact, I do have. If I could draw, I would absolutely be pitching IDW on some short Trek story ideas, because I do have ideas. But I would never claim to be an experienced writer. However, I do believe that these writers of New Trek are showing their deficiencies, and then they shouldn't be in these jobs. And there's nobody at the wheel. This is Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom when they walk in the cockpit and nobody's flying the plane. And also the amount of showrunners they went through on both
Discovery
and Discovery, it shows you they don't know what the fuck they're doing. And that's disappointing because there are 55 years or 56 years or 7 of Star Trek, not only the TV shows, but the books and the comics where everyone did color from the lines. I told you guys I'm reading this book that catalogs all the Star Trek novels up through like the mid-aughts. And beyond being a checklist, they interview the authors when they could to talk about writing these books. And Paramount used to be, and apparently I think still is, because I know in speaking with Michael Jan Friedman and John Jackson Miller, that there's a vetting process. Well, you can write this, but you can't write that. And Richard Arnold, Roddenberry's old assistant, was the arbiter of these books back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, I wanted the story to be a little more, risky and stuff. Richard Arnold said no. Because, and Rich Berman adhered to Roddenberry's general, ideas of what Trek should be and shouldn't be. I don't know. Mike Conrad says Terry Matalas took over as showrunner of season 3 of Picard, gave us the best season of Trek since at least the final season of Enterprise. He should be running Modern Trek. Well, you're not alone, Mike. A lot of people feel that way. I don't think again, Ed and I were talking today, and Ed's like, well, either because Matalas was trying to be a company guy and supporting Kurtzman and everybody else. And he's like, well, he's either really stupid or, he knows that who's signing the checks and he doesn't want to piss them off because he would like to do more Star Trek. And I'm like, yeah, it's the latter. Of course it's the latter. I'm like, you're not going to shit on your boss, whether you think he's right or wrong. Thank God they gave him enough leeway to tell Picard season 3 the way he wanted to and the way most of us fans wanted to. I don't know. But I do. Again, Wayne, I hear what you're saying, but everything you think is, or at least the tone of the way you say it almost sounds like a justification of, well, they don't know how to write science fiction, but they got the job. So there you go. And it's like, yeah, but then
or it's that this is what, or is this what the higher ups at Paramount are saying? We don't want science fiction. We want you to tell teen stories, write teen stories.
God, I hope. Well, first of all, if I may, the Paramount heads, they have, certainly Les Moonves had no clue what to do with Star Trek. I don't know about the higher ups. I do know they think it's valuable. I just wish they would hire people that actually like Star Trek and wanted to write Star Trek. And I do think there's a happy medium to be able to write a show that newcomers can come to and feel comfortable with and not feel like they need the backstory and stuff. I mean, that's the thing. There was a subtlety to Rick Berman era Star Trek where they adhered to the previous canon of the original series, but were still giving us new and interesting stories. And that's the thing. You have all these new characters that you can write stories about. Do that. But again, they're writing stories that have nothing to do with Star Trek or science fiction.
You know what would be really great, but you can't do it right now because of the writer's strike?
Television.
Talk to Mark Bernard and ask him what was his experience like and why he's not there for a subsequent season.
Yeah, he was on season 2 of Picard.
Yeah, Picard, he was.
Yeah. No, I know. And if I were closer friends with him, I would never reveal any state secrets. And I mean, that's the thing. I have a lot of friends that, off the record, agree that they're disappointed with New Trek, but they are either television writers themselves, and the people I'm talking about have never been associated with New Trek at all. But they would never want those negative opinions to get out there because they wouldn't mind writing for Star Trek someday, and maybe they will. I don't know.
Don't knock the team, buddy.
No, again. And man, I can't emphasize enough because the event just started. IDW's comics are so good. I don't know if you had a chance to see that panel, Wayne.
No, I didn't have a chance.
Okay. That those guys and women, Day of Blood just started. That's the big Klingon event that they were planning.
Yes.
And I will be talking to IDW comic creators of Star Trek much more, and Heather Antos as well, the editor. It is such a superior product than what we're getting on TV.
I bought that issue this week. I haven't read it yet. I bought the variant cover that has the crazy Bajoran guy from Lower Decks on it with the batleth.
Shanks.
Yeah, I picked that. I went because they have these red Klingon covers, and I went looking through and I found that one. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. So
that was that's where I laughed. I literally laughed out loud because Worf started on the Pike, or rather the Cisco comic book.
Yeah.
And Cisco's chief of security. Something happens with the Klingons that leads into Day of Blood, and Worf breaks away from Starfleet, steals the Defiant, and assembles his own crew. And they needed a new security officer with Cisco, and it's Shanks from Lower Decks.
Yeah.
And the great thing is he plays it straight. And I talked to Jackson Lansing and Carlin Kelly about it, and they're like, "Oh no, we asked McMahon because I guess they've been friends with McMahon years before Lower Decks, and they're like, we want to do this. Is it cool?" And he's like, "Absolutely." And it's great because Shanks and the command crew of the Cerritos take themselves very seriously, and I like that joke of they're dealing with real Star Trek issues while the Lower Decks people are scratching their asses. But yeah, Shanks is played seriously in this Cisco comic. What did you want to say, Wayne?
Not to shit on our passion, but I think with comic books, because it's such a really narrow
audience,
that you could probably tell more interesting stories. And they probably don't have the same level of oversight.
No, frankly, they do. No, this stuff gets vetted by Paramount.
It probably gets vetted, but because it's comics, it could be, it's just, the overseers could say, it's comics. Who cares?
Like Star Wars, new product, Star Wars comics and books, Paramount considers the IDW Trek comics canon.
Yeah.
There are guidelines, parameters that they do have to follow. Go ahead.
I'll tell you, when you were just saying that maybe the writers should go write for a CW show, I'm thinking about all the different Star Wars shows on Disney Plus and the Marvel shows, and maybe each one of them does get their own marching orders to write for a different category, because the person that watches Secret Invasion, which is on Disney Plus right now about Nick Fury, and the person that watches Andor is probably an older audience than the one that watches The Mandalorian, which is more kid-friendly and younger audience, as opposed to the one that watches Rebels. Because I've watched all the Star Wars stuff. I'm like you with Star Trek, but Star Wars I go more into. And I've watched a lot of the cartoon stuff. maybe they're like, hey, look, you know what? Not everybody's the Uber fan. Not everybody's watching all of this stuff. Maybe some people just come in to watch Lower Decks and don't watch,
But
just Discovery or the new event. Maybe that's what the thing is. They're trying to do
But
a
it-
musical because they're going for a younger crowd. They're not going for that dead serious Trek.
but as
audience.
opposed to decades past, why not make a Star Trek show that everyone can enjoy?
Because
I
they had
understand that-
20-something episodes then, and it was on free TV,
I don't.
and now it's
Mitch,
on pay TV.
I think you can do it with 10. I don't think.
I don't think the average person's buying Paramount Plus. I think the Trek people are buying it.
You're right about that as well. Those breakdown numbers of what streamers are doing well,
Yeah.
and no, Netflix is the champ.
Yeah.
And the others, including Paramount Plus, are not even half.
Oh God, no.
Or a quarter of the audience that Netflix has. No, you're right.
If-
But also, again, I say with the differences of Andor and The Mandalorian,
Yeah.
nobody is doing a broad comedy where Spock or where Luke or Han or Leia are the butt of the jokes.
Well, Lucas was going to do that until he finally got out of there because he was losing it when he was going to do that thing with the robot chicken guys. They had filmed all this Star Wars. I can't even think of the name of it. They did like 40 episodes of this claymation weird shit, and then they just scrapped it. When Disney bought it, they were like, "You're not going to show this." And it was all
well,
it was
right,
all
so-
jokey stuff. It was all
and
wacky.
Disney put a stop to that. Or Family Guy doing the parody of the story, but that's okay. Those were just they were like one-shot little parodies, and they were great and they were funny, and we knew what they were. That's mic'd up as a comment. Hold on a minute. And he says, I wonder who Akiva Goldsman and team are making the show for. They don't seem to be making it for diehards. So are they trying to target young people? Are young people watching? I do think that is the bulk of what they're aiming for. And the people that like, and no disrespect, Wayne, because I know you like it for the most part as well. But yeah, they want a younger audience. I do think that it's an audience that they believe, if anything, maybe only watch the JJ movies.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that little element as well.
Yep.
But I again, Ed and I were saying today, it's like, well, I mean, how many people like, well, how'd you get into Star Trek? Oh, me and my mom watched it together. Me and my father watched it together. And it's like, and it's like, well, now Dad doesn't like Star Trek, and the kids might, and that's great. But why would you piss off potentially such a large base that is happy that Star Trek is back, but kind of wanted more traditional Star Trek? Go ahead, Wayne.
We're dying off, so it doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Shit.
There's no young kids in it. There was no young kids in Indiana Jones. I walked in. I said, "There's no 10-year-olds watching Indiana Jones. There's no 13-year-olds watching this because."
Mike Coonrad says, "I want to love the current IDW Trek books, but I can't get into the Cisco stuff because I keep hoping they will do a Cisco show a la Picard season 3." Well, that's what I'm saying, Mike. The good news is the guys that are writing the IDW comics are really diehard Star Trek fans, and they're giving you the kind of entertainment that I wish was happening on TV. I don't think Avery Brooks would come back to play Cisco.
That ain't ever going to happen.
No.
Done.
Well, and that's why too, I wouldn't mind a new casting of some of these classic or Berman era Trek characters. That's why I was all for a new Chapel and a new Uhura, and certainly a new Mabenga, who had so little exposure on the original series. What's up, Wayne?
Okay, from the Babylon 5 panel last night.
Yeah.
JMS actually talked to all the surviving cast members and said, okay, if I do this and you come back, is it okay for me to recast? Because if it's not okay for me to recast any of the characters that have passed away, we are not doing another Babylon 5 project. And the surviving actor said, yes, we would love to come back, and sure, go ahead to recast them.
Wow.
So, because he was willing to say, no, it was going to just, that's it, it's done.
Because I assumed we were going to get a reboot of the original story.
Without kinda. It's the possibility is there based on what they told, the story he told last night, the story he told last night, the possibility is there for a reboot.
That's what I assumed the CW or whomever wherever it may air was kind of investing in. You know, we can wrap up soon. I wanted to ask you: did they show the movie?
Oh, the Babylon 5?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I saw it all. Oh, it was great.
It's great, excellent to hear, and because I'll buy it. I will definitely buy it.
I already had it on order.
Yeah.
There's always the. Do you remember Zathras?
Yes, of course.
Oh my God, it is classic Zathras.
Great.
And JMS says, I really don't like this character, but he seems to be the one that again when he's doing a panel, you don't know how if he's being sarcastic or if he's just really pulling your leg.
Yeah.
Because he was just going, yeah, Zathras. And what is the plural of Zathras? But Zathras has some good lines in it.
That's good. No, I mean, again, the trailer looked great. I'm a massive Babylon 5 fan. And I, again, read a lot of the books as well as, and even liked the DVD they made with the 2 stories about Londo's kid and the other story with Galen from Crusade. No, I support Babylon 5 product. I think it was an excellent series, and it's a
fitting tribute. They did dedicate the film to the fallen cast members.
Oh, that's great.
At the end,
Michael O'Hare, Richard Biggs, Jerry
O'Dale,
Bobby Wheeler, Jerry Doyle, and Kinnicky, Bobby Wheeler,
Jeff Conaway, buddy.
Jeff Conaway, that's right.
When you see the list, it's like literally half the cast.
They're all dead. Yeah,
almost all of them.
Doctor. Yeah.
God, I'm glad, Peter. You know, we talked about cameos, and I really want to buy a Peter Jurassic cameo so he could talk to me as Londo. And the Centauri group. Come on.
So, he's dead too now?
No, he's
no.
Oh, I was going to say. Oh, yeah, wait. I was going to. The Greek guy that played the one-armed man in The Fugitive.
Yeah, Andreas
Katsoulis. He's long gone. Yeah.
JMS said that some of the lines that they had Jakar say in the movie, he said, when I was writing this, it's the one time that I really felt sad writing, because he said I could hear Andreas say these lines. And it's such a tribute because one of the persons that asked him a question said, there was this one speech, and we know we can't talk about previous Babylon 5 because of the strike and everything, but that past speech that Jakar said and what you wrote in this one, it was a fitting tribute because it was like you had to have been channeling that old speech. And JMS said, yeah.
Who knows this shit better than JMS? Absolutely, man. No, I'm very excited for the animated movie. When does it come out, Wayne?
It's out next month. I think August 15th.
Okay, mid-August. That's good to hear. Yeah. I don't want us to. We could save Secret Invasion talk till our next time,
and we can save Babylon 5 till you guys see it.
Absolutely. I don't know if Franco's gonna watch Babylon 5, but at least the 3 of us will. So Franco obviously wiped out from San Diego. We've got Terrificon again from the 28th through the 30th. Mohegan Sun. Tickets still available. You got to come and see all 4 of us. We're all going to be there, plus Artie, plus a lot of great comic book people, plus your favorite celebrities. They just won't do panels, but they will be there for autographs and photos and for you to say hello to them and things. I'm excited. But because of that, we probably won't have a new Trek watch for episode 8 right away. But likely that first week of August that. Yes.
And what's going to be interesting, sorry.
Go ahead.
What's going to be interesting, that first week of August, I'll be in Vegas at the Trek convention.
And we expect a full report of how crazy that show is going to be when they can't have panels talking about the shows or the movies. I don't know.
You should do Trek Watch live at Terrificon in one of the panels. Just like, what the fuck? We're here anyway.
Stanley, we did not talk about Oppenheimer.
I saw Oppenheimer.
What'd you think, real fast, Mitch? Just real fast.
A lot of things something blew up.
All right.
It was a PBS movie with a lot of Chris Nolan familiar actors. I didn't like it. Ordway liked it. He's going to see it twice. We
Wow.
did a review. I'll put it up tomorrow. Once that bomb blew up, I was bored to tears, and there was another hour to go. And I'm like, oh boy. Whatever.
I'm a history nerd, and especially
Well, you'll like it then.
a Cold War nerd, so I probably will like it. But I have to admit, I'm not rushing to the box office to see it. It is pretty amazing and shows where the audience is that Barbie and Oppenheimer did as well as they did this weekend.
They did.
Not to spoil it, did Oppenheimer do the speech that he did when it exploded?
On the Destroyer of Worlds? Yes, he did.
Okay.
Sure, that's history.
No, it is. And that.
Oh, no, I know.
Yeah.
I'm aware. Mike Coonrad says, great to hear that the new Babylon 5 flick is good. I love B5, even though Paramount ripped it off to make DS9. You know, Straczynski and I talked about that in my Word Balloon interview with him. And Ed says B5 sounds good. Looking forward to it. And JMS on Captain America as well. Was not expecting that. Indeed.
That's right.
I quite agree.
Buy the first issue with the John Romita cover because I have the original artwork for that. Make my cover worth even more. Cha-ching.
Wow. Very cool. Yeah. There you go, everybody. I think we can wrap there. I think we did good. We talked about the 2 episodes. We talked about the musical coming up. And I really do hope that that what interests me about next week's trailer turns out to be a great episode. I really hope so.
Not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen.
What are you gonna do? Well, again, every week I'm like, well, maybe I'll like this week's episode more. And so far, unfortunately, not the case. But all right, everybody, thanks for watching. Great week on Word Balloon. If I could promote real fast, Mike Hawthorne, the wonderful Batman artist that works with Chip Zdarsky, is going to be on Monday. Tuesday, the great Jesse Blaze Snyder, son of Dee Snyder and Twisted Sister, joined me with his rock parody, heavy metal comedy comic book that he is making called King of Kings. And on Wednesday, a double feature in the afternoon. I think I'm going to pre-record it, but we'll release it this week. I'll be talking to Rich Coase, a.k.a. Sven Gulli, about his anthology book from Frank Miller Comics.
I picked that up today.
There you go. And Wednesday night, I'm really, really excited. This guy, I've been a fan of his since I really started reading comics again back in 99, 2000. And that's Sean Martinborough, the wonderful artist that worked with Greg Rucka on that fantastic run on Detective Comics from back then. He worked with Robert Kirkman on King of Kings. He is a very, I believe, Alex Toth-inspired artist. If you don't know him by name, great illustrations, a wonderful artist. And I cannot wait to sit down and talk with him on a Wednesday night. Then I leave Thursday morning for Terrificon. And we'll do I'll be doing 5 panels there, comic book panels. I hope you'll join me at those. And don't worry, we promise that we will have audio for those for Word Balloon and eventually video as well. So that's what's going on in our worlds. I hope your worlds are well, whether you're in a parallel world or our own world right now. And until next time, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.